Hey everybody, this is Dave here at Pulp Alley, and today we're talking about how to play the Pulp Alley tabletop adventure game. Specifically, we are going through the second edition core rules page by page and just doing a cool summary and letting you guys know how to play. Now, today in this video, we're going to try and get through about 6 pages. We're going to talk about Perils. That's really cool. We're going to talk about challenges. We're going to talk about conditions, and then we're going to get all the way to health. And that's we're going to hopefully we'll get all of that squeezed into this video relatively quickly. Just a couple quick things though. Take a moment right now and make sure you are subscribed to our little channel. We really do appreciate that. Make sure you hit the like button and the bell so you'll get a notification when we upload new videos. Also wanted to throw in a little bit of a disclaimer here, and that is that I don't do a lot of scripting. I don't really plan out what I'm going to say before the record button is pressed. So it's quite likely that I'm not going to say everything as clearly or succinctly or maybe even as accurately as I would like. So these videos aren't really a replacement to the rules. Hopefully they will help you understand the rules, but definitely take a moment and kind of skip through the rules as well. You don't want to just go by these videos. Also, remember that we do a full live game of Pulp Alley nearly every Sunday. So if you want to see Pulp Alley in the raw, join us every Sunday at 10 a.m. and you're going to see a real game. I get confused sometimes. I try to find sometimes when I get on YouTube, I try to find how-to videos and rules videos online for skirmish games that I'm interested in. And very seldom can you find anything that's really meaningful. So I hope that you guys are enjoying these. I think whether or not you're an experienced player or a new player, either way, you should be getting something out of this. So let's just get into it. As always, your questions are welcome. Leave them down in the comments. Let us know if you have some suggestions as well. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start here on page 45. We're going to talk a little bit about perils. So what are perils? That's the big heading here. And perils really in Pulp Alley represent just about any sort of danger that your character can run into. So if you're crossing through an area occupied by a man-eating plant, yeah, that could be dangerous. If you're crossing a trench filled with poisonous vipers, sure, that could be a peril. If you're climbing the side of a cliff or a building, sure, that could be a peril as well. If you're leaping from the back of a horse onto a moving train, yep, that could be a peril as well. It can happen during your movement. It can happen when somebody casts a spell at you. All kinds of things can cause you to encounter a peril throughout the scenario. Pulp setting is dangerous, and dangers can come at you from anywhere, right? Does that make sense? So when a danger comes at you, when you are faced with a peril, what you're going to do is you're going to draw the top card off of the fortune deck, and you're going to use the bottom portion of the card, and that shows you the challenge. So when he touches it, when he comes into contact, he's going to have to roll for that peril. And the way you do what the challenge is you know the challenge requires one success, because that's the one down here, and the challenge requires the use of cunning. Well, that's Phantom Ace's weak spot. He only has 2 die 8 in cunning, so that's what he will roll. To pass the peril, all he has to do is get one success out of those 2 dice. We roll it, and looky there, both of them are above a 4, so that's the one success that he needed, and that is a success. Now, perils are pass-fail sort of things. You either pass a peril or you fail it. So if you pass the peril, then you can continue your activation as normal. If you fail a peril, then you take a number of hits. Remember that word, hits, because we're going to talk about that when we get to health. You take a number of hits equal to the challenge. So in this case, it would have been one hit if he would have failed it. In addition, failing a peril will end your activation right there. You are done. That's one of the things that will end your activation just automatically. I just want to remind you that you can always choose to dodge a peril. So if for some reason you got a challenge that you looked at and you said, well, there's no way I can do that one, you can choose to use your dodge instead of what is listed. Although you can avoid the damage, avoid taking those hits, it does stop you in your tracks. So that ends your activation if you choose to use your dodge. The next part of the rules that we're going to take a look at.
Hello, sir. How you doing today?
Hey, buddy. It's not a good time for me. I apologize.
Do you mind if I leave you with some information?
Sure,
that you can
real
look
quick.
over yourself?
Yep.
My name and phone number is at the bottom. Give me a call
Thank
if
you.
you have any questions.
So for this example, we're going to say that he continues his activation, and we're going to put a plot point out there just for fun. That's what he was going after, and he moves into contact with the plot point. So that's going to bring us to our next section here in the book, which is challenges. So the two biggest challenges that you're going to run into in Pulp Alley are plot points and perils. So all challenges is pretty much completed in the same sort of idea. Normally, you're going to draw a random card off the top of the deck. On the card, it's going to tell you the skill that you need, the skills in this part that you need to use, and it's going to tell you how many successes you're going to have to roll to complete that challenge. Really, really cool. There's a couple differences. I guess we'll talk about this a little bit here. Is the differences between perils and plot points. Those are the two most common sorts of challenges that you're going to run into in Pulp Alley. So both of them are basically pass-fail sort of situations, but you don't want to confuse them. A peril is not a plot point. A plot point is not a peril. They are not the same thing. They are different and they're handled differently. So a peril, if you pass it, then you have no effect and the challenge is discarded. For a plot point, if you pass it, you normally draw a reward card and then you discard the challenge. So not a big difference there. However, if you fail a peril, then you suffer the number of hits that are shown on the card. So if Phantom Ace failed this one, then he would take 2 hits. And then the challenge is discarded. The challenge does not remain in play. It doesn't linger around or anything like that. It would normally simply be discarded. However, if it is a plot point that he's doing, if he fails it, it has no effect whatsoever. He's not injured. He doesn't have to roll a health check and yada, yada. However, the challenge does remain in play. So what that means is that when a challenge is identified for a plot point, it will remain the same until that plot point is completed. And then we're going to move on to conditions. Conditions here. So the two most common conditions are really impaired and hindrance. So for both of those, they can come from a lot of different things. They can come from special rules for a scenario. They can come from your own abilities. You could choose to hinder one of your own characters to gain extra bonuses off of that. The two differences basically are is that when you're impaired, if you want to do that thing, whatever it happens to be, roll a particular skill or roll a recovery check, then before you can actually roll that dice, you've got to discard a fortune card out of your hand. If you are hindered, if something is hindered like a skill, then you normally suffer a -1 penalty to that skill as if it's one level lower than what it actually is written. However, you can voluntarily discard a fortune card out of your hand to ignore that penalty. And that's basically what we're going to cover as far as conditions today. And that brings us to the health. So health is going to be challenged a lot of different ways in Pulp Alley. When you fail a peril, that means that you're going to take hits equal to that. You also take hits during combat. You could take hits from spells and other things like that. So the two things to remember here is how many dice do I roll and what type of dice do I roll. So when you roll a health check, you're going to roll a number of dice equal to the number of hits you suffered. So if you take 3 hits, then you roll 3 dice. That's like so easy to remember. You don't there's no chart to look at. You don't have to cross-reference the number of hits with this or that or another thing. It's just like the number of hits equals the number of dice you roll. So let's say Phantom Ace was fighting this giant snake here for whatever reason, and the snake hit him 3 times. Well, that means he would have to roll a 3 dice health check. If Phantom Ace was not injured at the time, well, he would be rolling d10s. The number of hits determines the number of dice that are rolled, and the type of dice is determined by whatever your current health is. So he would roll 3 die 10. Now that's going to be a hard health check to pass. To pass this health check, every single dice that you roll has to be a 4 or better. And look at that. He did it. That's pretty good. So, regardless of how many dice you're rolling, I want to make this very, very clear here for both experienced players and for new players as well. The number of dice you roll, those are not 3 individual health checks. The health check is equal to the number of dice or the number of hits that you took. And that determines how many dice you roll for that one health check. Now, if you fail the health check, your health drops 1 level, regardless of how many failures that you rolled. So in this example, let's say Phantom Ace rolled through all 3 failures. Well, that still means his health only dropped 1 level. If he rolled 2 failures, his health still drops 1 level. If you rolled 1 failure, his health still drops only 1 level. So the number of hits is there to increase the difficulty of passing. It's not going to cause extra damage to you, even though you have the potential of rolling multiple failures. And that's really about the pulp ethos, the adventure ethos of your Flash Gordons, your Indiana Jones. You know, you don't want those characters knocked out in one blow on turn number 1, right? You want to give them a fighting chance to go through the scenario. So as one blow, no matter how devastating it is, will normally not take out a character. At least not one of the big characters like Phantom Ace here. Now, what happens if you fail? Health checks really are pass-fail sort of situations. So you either pass a health check or you fail it. In this case, what if he did roll a failure? That means he suffers an injury and his health goes down 1 dice type. So instead of being at a D10 health, his health goes down to a D8. And from that point on, as long as he's at a D8 health, he cannot roll any dice bigger than his current health. That can make a big difference in those big characters. Once the big characters take an injury, that affects their effectiveness on the table, and they're not going to be quite as good. Normally, there are ways around it. There are abilities, right? There's always something. And as you continue to take injuries and continue to fail your health checks, your health will continue to drop from a D10 to a D8 to a D6 until you are knocked down. And then that could potentially take you out of the game. So I know there's a lot more that I could talk about on this stuff, but I'm trying to keep them short and sweet. If you have questions, be sure and leave them down in the comments below. While you're at it, make sure you get subscribed to our little channel, hit the like button and the bell, and we're going to see you very, very soon. Bye, everybody.